Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lexi, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my fantasy book recommendations. I am so excited for this video. I have been looking forward to making this for a long time. And there's actually going to be a series. I'm going to do a series of different videos talking about a whole bunch of different fantasy book recommendations. This is just the first one, and these are some of my top favorites as of right now that I absolutely love. I love the fantasy genre so much. There's so much about it that brings me so much joy. And it's not just because fantasy offers a magical, whimsical world in which to escape, but also because the best fantasy, in my opinion, rings with something true. It's talking about something that resonates because maybe it's heavy, weighty topics, dark things that the character is facing, but ultimately I love fantasy books that offer up hope, ones with a hopeful spirit. Now, I definitely have my favorite darker fantasies, but like everybody, I have some of my preferences, things that I tend to lean towards in books, things that pull me in. I tend to really like fantasy that has this brightness to it. Maybe it deals with something dark and scary that's happening in the world, but it does so in a hopeful and sometimes even humorous manner. I really find that refreshing. I especially like it if it's just really whimsical and very magical. I tend to lean towards fantasies that are magical, but in a very creative manner. I really like it when the author can kind of make up a totally new magic system that I've never seen before in a world that just works in a really interesting way. That really grabs me, and I want to know more, and I want to explore the world and the life of the character. So that's just to give you a little taste of some of my favorite types of fantasy books. Now let's get into this list because I have some fantastic ones to share with you. So the first one is a book that I just finished and I'm really excited about because it's fresh in my mind and it was a 5-star read, and that is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. Now I listened to the audiobook of this, which was perf. The narrator did a fantastic job. And I just felt like this book immediately swept me away. First of all, it's a cozy fantasy that has a mystery right at the beginning. So you start off with this wizard baker, and her name is Mona. She considers herself kind of a small, humble, not very cool wizard. She's 14 years old and she can't do anything incredible like the wizards in her medieval town that can call down, lightning from the sky and manipulate water. She can't do any of that. But what she can do is manipulate dough. So she's really good at using her magic to make sure that, her sourdough turns out just right, fluffy, perfect. And she's really good at making sure that bread doesn't burn in the oven. She can actually animate bread, gingerbread, which becomes a big element in the story. She doesn't think she has much to offer the world, but she's very content with just being a little wizard baker, working in her aunt and uncle's bakery, just kind of living a simple, humble life. Until she finds a body lying dead in the bakery and has no idea who it is or how it happened or what to do, and finds herself thrown into this bigger, grander mystery and huge political, intense battle. And so this book was it was funny, it was clever, the banter was great, the characters were just like endearing immediately. And they felt like real people. And I felt like this book didn't take itself too seriously, but also just has a depth to it that was so refreshing. I just absolutely loved this book. I cannot say enough good things about it. So highly, highly, highly recommend get your hands on A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking because I think you're gonna love it. And if you're like me and you tend to like things that are on the cozier side, and that's not to say this book does not have, murder and battles and swords and magical bread. It has a lot of really cool things. But yeah, cozy to me, it just is something in there that's just like, pull up a cup of tea, get your scone, get the little candle going, just cozy up because this book is a fun ride. Next on this list, I cannot do a fantasy recommendations video, at least not the first one, without talking about my favorite fantasy of all time, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Why do I love this book? I love this book for a number of reasons. First of all, the writing is incredible. It swept me away from page one. It is so cozy, so whimsical, so magical. Stephanie just creates worlds that you want to be in and people that you want to follow. Now, that's not to say there aren't some really dark characters in her books, because there are. There are some morally gray characters. Ones that you're not sure if they're bad, if they're good. The characters have a lot of secrets, but that's half the fun, right? That's the fun of trying to figure out who people are in the story and what's going on with the mystery. So her first series, the Caraval series, follows a girl named Scarlet. She has dreamed her whole life of getting to be a part of this grand magical game in Caraval, which is this kind of traveling, almost like circus that travels around. And so she's been writing to the man who's in charge of the game. His name is Legend, and nobody really knows a lot about him. He's this very mysterious figure. No one really knows exactly what he looks like or who he is, but she's been writing to him for years and years and years, and finally she gets her invitation to come and play Caraval. Chaos ensues, a romance happens in this book, as well as just her desperately trying to find her sister, who's been lost deep inside the game of Caraval, where you're not sure what's real and what's not real. And people who enter Caraval to play the game have to remind themselves it's only a game, because you will be lost into the webs of lies and chaos that ensues here, and start to believe that maybe parts of it are real, but really it's all magical. At least that's what all of the players have been told. So it's just full of intrigue and mystery, and I could not put this book down. And I just think that if that sounds like fun to you, you are going to love this. And then in addition to Caraval is the Once Upon a Broken Heart little series here, this continuation. So the first one that I mentioned is a trilogy. There is Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. The next trilogy by Stephanie starts with Once Upon a Broken Heart. And you're following a girl named Evangeline who's grown up her whole life in her father's curiosity shop. And she just might be one of the curiosities that have been collected in this little shop. And she finds herself in this tough situation of pledging herself to this elusive man named Jax. He is a fate. This is a world kind of ruled by fates, which are these magical, powerful beings. And she really, really, really wants him to stop her first true love from getting married to another. And so the book takes off from there. But she entangles herself into all sorts of trouble with Jax. He agrees to help her, but only if she offers him 3 kisses that will be given at different times that he decides. And the kisses cause all sorts of different magical problems. It's just as intriguing as Caraval right off the bat, and I think I would recommend starting with Caraval just so you can kind of get a taste for Stephanie's writing style and the world that she's built, and then dive into this trilogy, maybe even just after Caraval. It's my favorite after Caraval. This is my next favorite book by her, so definitely check this one out if that sounds like fun to you. Okay, next on this list is the beautiful Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. What a joy and a gem of a book. This is a good summer read. It is sort of a Princess Bride inspired tale. If Buttercup in The Princess Bride decided to go after Wesley across the sea. So this book follows Tress, and she lives on an island. She never really leaves, and it's right off the coast of this very dangerous ocean. It is an ocean full of deadly spores. You really don't want to travel across it, but she has no choice when the love of her life is taken by a sorceress, and so she must cross the sea. She is compelled to cross the sea to go and find the only boy that she's ever truly loved, and the only person who may have ever really truly known and loved her back. So it's just such a good book. There's just misfits and found family. It's funny. Brandon Sanderson is just so witty. I was cracking up laughing at so many points in this book. I just thought, this guy is hilarious, and he's a genius. Like, there's so many elements to this that I've never seen in other fantasy books. And, you know, the pirates and the seafaring and the danger and the sorcery and the true love. It's just everything I love in a fantasy book. So highly, highly recommend this. Next up is a book called The Splendor by Brianna Shields. This is right up my alley. It features, kind of like Caraval, two sisters. Both of the sisters have always wanted to kind of get out of their dreary, sad life to go and stay at this magical hotel called The Splendor. The main character's name is Juliet, and one day her sister gets to go off and go to the Splendor, and when she comes back she is completely changed. Her sister Claire is like a completely different person. She seems like agitated and frustrated around Juliet. Like their relationship has completely altered, and they went from being best friends to Claire acting like she barely knows her sister. Juliet is like so concerned and gets herself to the Splendors, trying to figure out what happened to her sister in this magical hotel, where she meets a boy that works at the hotel and starts to discover all of the lies and secrets that exist there. And she starts to unravel them with this boy's help. So this book is full of mystery, romance, and just a whimsical, magical world that's really fun to be in. I would say that this book is actually a cozy fantasy as well. I feel like it definitely had cozy fantasy vibes. So if that is up your alley, pick this one up. I do not think you will be disappointed. It was one that I absolutely loved. Okay, also on this list is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. This is a very charming, sweepingly romantic, just beautiful epic tale set in an incredible world. We actually follow a girl who grew up on the moon in this story with her mother. Her mother was exiled to the moon, and it's a beautiful place where they live. But her daughter ultimately has to save her mom through a series of really difficult acts. She and her mother get separated, and unfortunately she has to go through all sorts of trials. So the girl in this book is being hidden from the Celestial Emperor, who exiled her mother for stealing the elixir of immortality. Alone, powerless, and afraid, she makes her way to the Celestial Kingdom, a land of wonder and secrets. Disguising her identity, she seizes an opportunity to train alongside the Emperor's son, mastering archery and magic, even as passion flames between her and the prince. So, lots of romance in this book, and there's a big twist towards the end that I really enjoyed, and there's just this really cool mother-daughter relationship as well. I really like to see that when it's a mother-daughter relationship and they really love each other, and they're trying to protect one another and keep their family together, and it's just such a beautiful epic tale. So I definitely recommend this. Okay, and then last on this list, An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So this is very much an autumn, fall vibes book, and it's beautiful. It follows a girl named Isabel. She is a painter, and one day she gets the chance to paint a fairy prince. It is really kind of a fearful thing for humans in this world to interact with the fairies, because they're not very nice to humans at all, and they crave human craft, which is something that they cannot do. They can't do simple things like cooking and painting and sort of busying oneself with chores. That's just not something that the fairies can do, and it will actually hurt them to do so. So she is painting this fairy prince, and then accidentally paints sorrow, mortal sorrow, in his eyes, and he has to take her to stand trial for what she's done. And it's a beautiful romance with a very interesting magical fairy world where the fairies really long to be like the humans more than the humans long to be like fairies. And I liked that sort of flip on the traditional take with fairies. There's a really interesting commentary about that throughout the book that I found to be very deep. Yeah, I just found it to be kind of a refreshing take on that. So really enjoyed it and definitely recommend that. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here for my fantasy book recommendations. I will have another one coming out for you soon. And in the meantime, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite fantasy book? If you are a fantasy reader, what do you love? What do you like in fantasy books? I would love to know. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.